I moved into the Riverview Towers because the rent was half what anything else in Bristol asked, and the lady in the office said the view of the river was worth the climb. She never mentioned the elevator. Building was old, built back when they still used hydraulic lifts and brass that took a real shine. 12 floors, red brick gone soft with age, windows that rattled when the trains went through at night. My apartment was 9C, top floor, corner unit, little balcony where you could sit and watch the water slide by, black and slow under the streetlights. I liked it fine. Worked days at the hardware store on State Street, came home tired, heated up soup, fell asleep to the sound of the rhythm and the hum of the elevator running up and down like a dog that never learned to settle. Most folks took the stairs after 6, but I was lazy and my knees already sounded like gravel in a can. The elevator was a cage inside a cage. Outer doors that opened out into the hall, inner accordion gates you had to pull shut yourself. Smelled like oil and old cigarettes no matter how much the super sprayed. I got to where I could time it, 30 seconds from lobby to 9, give or take the mood of the motor. I'd stand there with my keys in my hand, listening to the cable sing, thinking about nothing much. It was a Thursday sliding into Friday, one of those January nights when the cold comes in quiet and sits on your chest. I'd stayed late restocking shelves, didn't get home till after 3. Lobby was empty, nightlight over the mailboxes flickering like it was on its last breath. I pressed the button, heard the car coming down slow, the way it always did when it was tired. Doors opened with that familiar groan. I stepped in, pulled the gate, leaned against the back wall, and closed my eyes for the ride. We never made it to 9. Somewhere between 9 and 10, the car slowed, then stopped with a soft sigh, like a man letting go of something heavy. Lights dimmed but didn't die. The floor counter stayed blank. I opened my eyes, waiting for the usual joke that meant we were moving again. Nothing came. I reached for the gate to open it myself, see if we were hung up on a door, when I noticed the wall behind me wasn't the wall anymore. There was a second set of doors where the back panel should have been. Smooth, brushed steel, no seams, no handle, no nothing. They hadn't been there when I got on. I'd have bet my life on it. I turned full around, heart kicking slow and hard, and watched those doors slide apart, silent as a secret. A hallway stretched out, narrow, lit by one bare bulb hanging from a wire. Walls the same dirty cream as the rest of the building, but wrong, too close, like the space between floors had been hollowed out and nobody told the blueprints. The air that came through smelled like damp concrete and the river at low tide. At the far end, maybe 20 feet, stood another elevator. Same cage, same accordion gate, same scuffed floor. Doors open, light inside steady and warm. My reflection stood inside it. Not in a mirror, there wasn't one. Just me, wearing the same coat, same tired face, same keys in my left hand. He was waiting, patient, the way I wait when I know the car's coming. Only his right hand lifted slow and waved, palm open, fingers loose. I didn't wave. My arms hung heavy at my sides. I felt the smile start on his face, small and sad, like he knew a joke I hadn't got to yet. I backed up till the real gate bit into my spine. My breath fogged in the cold rolling out of that hallway. The bulb down there flickered once, twice, then held. My reflection took one step forward, out of his elevator and into the hall. Boots made no sound on the concrete. He kept coming, slow, copying the way I walk when my back's hurting and I don't want anybody to notice. I could see the river through the open doors behind him, black water sliding past windows that shouldn't exist between floors. I don't know why I didn't scream. Something in his eyes, my eyes, told me noise wouldn't help. I slammed the accordion gate shut so hard the metal rang. My fingers found the lobby button and stabbed it over and over till the plastic went warm. The car lurched, cables groaning like they'd been asleep and didn't appreciate the wake-up. The steel doors in the back wall stayed open, patient. My reflection kept walking. 10 feet away now. 5. Close enough I could see the keys in his hand were the same set, right down to the bent one for the storage unit I hadn't opened since Mama died. The elevator dropped. Not fast, just steady, like it finally remembered where it belonged. I watched those inward doors the whole way down, waiting for them to slide shut on their own. They never did. My reflection stopped at the threshold, head tilted, listening to the cables the way I do. He raised his hand again, not waving this time, just resting it on the edge of the door frame, gentle, like he was holding it open for me in case I changed my mind. The car hit lobby level hard enough to rattle my teeth. The real doors opened onto the empty hall, night light still flickering, smell of floor wax and cold air. I stumbled out, fell to my knees on the tile. When I looked back, the steel doors was gone, just the same wood panel and brass rail that always been there. No seam, no mark, no cold coming out. I sat there till the sky outside turned the color of weak coffee. Didn't move when the early risers started coming down. Didn't answer when Mrs. Lawson from 4B asked if I was all right. I went upstairs, packed 2 bags, left the key on the counter and the rent money in an envelope. Drove south till the mountains took me back. I still dreamed the ride, feel the stop between 9 and 10, feel the cold roll in, hear the soft slide of doors that open the wrong way. And sometimes when I'm on a different elevator, grocery store, doctor's office, doesn't matter, I catch myself staring at the back wall, waiting for the panel to go smooth and quiet, waiting for that hallway to appear again, bulbs swinging gentle, my own self standing at the end with the gate open and the river running behind him like it never stopped. I take the stairs now, every time. Even when the arthritis flares and the cane thuds loud on the concrete. Because some doors aren't meant to open inward, and some versions of you finish the ride without you. They just wait between floors, patient as stone, holding the gate so the next tired man can step across easy and never know he's already home. I was born and raised in a place where the tallest thing around was the pine on top of Pine Knob, so the idea of walking into a building 20 stories high always felt like stepping into somebody else's dream. But work was work, and the ad said good pay, benefits, a chance to get off the road crew and wear a tie for once. The interview was set for 10:30 on the 23rd floor of the Cromwell building, right in the middle of downtown Roanoke. I'd never heard of the place before, but the lady on the phone gave clear directions. 214 Campbell Avenue, ask for Mrs. Aldrich, Human Resources. I found the building easy enough. Old brick, tall, narrow windows, brass letters above the door that were green with age. Lobby smelled like floor wax and old paper. The directory board was half dark, bulbs burned out, but Cromwell and Associates was lit up on 23. I stepped into the elevator alone, pressed a button, watched the doors close slow like they were thinking about it. The car was wood paneled, real wood, not that fake stuff. And the floor counter went all the way to 30, even though the building didn't look that tall from the street. I remember thinking rich folks must like extra floors nobody else gets to use. The ride up was smooth, quiet, just the soft hum of the motor and my own heartbeat. When the doors opened on 23, the hallway was carpeted in deep red, and the air smelled like roses left too long in a vase. A woman sat behind a desk, gray hair pulled tight, glasses on a chain. Mrs. Aldrich. She smiled the way people do when they already know something you don't. The interview went fine, better than fine. She asked about my family, where I went to church, if I was afraid of heights. I laughed and said only when I had to climb the water tower back home to paint it. She wrote something down, nodded, told me they'd be in touch. I left feeling lighter than I had in years. Walking back to the elevator, I was already counting the money, picturing my mama's face when I told her I wouldn't be swinging a pick no more. I pressed the call button. Doors opened right away. The car was full this time. 8, maybe 9 people in suits and skirts, briefcases, the smell of coffee and perfume. I squeezed in near the back, nodded sorry to the lady I bumped. She was older, maybe 60, wearing a navy dress and a little brooch shaped like a bird. Hair white as creek foam, pulled back neat. She didn't nod back, just stared straight ahead like the doors had done her wrong. We started down. Somewhere around 19 or 20, the car gave a lurch, then dropped. Not slow, not gentle, dropped like the cable snapped. 6 floors, maybe 7, fast enough my stomach stayed up top while the rest of me fell. People screamed, grabbed rails. One man's briefcase hit the floor and busted open, papers flying everywhere. I braced for the crash, eyes shut, already praying the short version Daddy taught me when the truck wouldn't start in winter. Then the brakes caught, hard. The car jerked to a stop so sudden my knees buckled and I went down on one. We hung there swaying, cables creaking overhead like an old porch swing in a storm. Lights flickered once, twice, went black. Emergency bulb never came on, just dark, thick, and close. The kind you get deep in a hollow when the moon forgets to rise. That's when she started counting. Soft, calm, like a mother timing thunder for a scared child. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Right beside me in the corner. Everybody else was breathing hard, somebody crying quiet, a man muttering Lord's Prayer under his breath. But her voice cut through it all, steady as creek water over stone. I opened my eyes but couldn't see a thing. The darkness felt wet. Her counting kept going, slow, deliberate. 10 Mississippi, 15, 20. Nobody told her to stop. Maybe we were all afraid of what would happen if she did. At 30 Mississippi exactly, the light snapped back, white and bright, hard enough to hurt. The car gave a little sigh and started moving again, smooth as before. Doors opened on 18 like nothing had happened. People spilled out fast, talking loud, brushing wrinkles out of coats, acting like the fall was a joke we all shared. The woman in the navy dress stepped out last. She never looked back, never said a word, just walked down the hall toward an office with frosted glass. I watched her go, then looked at the panel. We were on 18. I pressed L in the dark, I know I did. I rode the rest of the way down alone. Lobby was the same as when I came in, same smell, same half-lit directory. I walked out in the daylight blinking like I'd been underground for days. Something was itching at me, so I stopped on the sidewalk and looked up. Counted the windows best I could. 20 floors, maybe 21 if you stretched it. No 23, no way. I went home and waited for the call that never came. A week later, I drove back downtown, stood in front of 214 Campbell again. The building was still there, but the brass letters was gone, windows boarded up with fresh plywood. A sign out front said the place had burned in '86, gutted top to bottom. Arson suspected, no injuries, been empty ever since. I asked an old boy selling papers on the corner if he remembered Cromwell and Associates. He laughed, said the only thing ever on the top floors was storage and pigeons. I still have the business card Mrs. Aldrich gave me. Thick cream stock, raised lettering, phone number with a 381 exchange they haven't used since the '80s. Sometimes when the wind comes down off the mountain just right, I take it out, run my thumb across the letters, and swear I can smell roses gone bad. And sometimes late, when I'm in a different elevator and the lights flicker, I catch myself counting soft under my breath. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, waiting to see if 30 ever comes, or if whatever was wearing that navy dress and bird brooch finally decides the fall is long enough this time. I take the stairs when I can, always, even when my knees sound like snapping kindling. because some floors never were built for the living, and some women been riding between 'em a long time, waiting for the next man foolish enough to believe a job's worth stepping into a place the fire already claimed. I never did like the smell of cotton dust. It gets in your nose and stays there, fine as grave dirt, reminding you that everything woven eventually unravels. The old Riverside Mill on the south bank of the Clinch had been shut since '08, windows busted out, kudzu crawling up the loading docks like it was trying to pull the whole place back into the ground. 5 years empty, 5 years of rain finding every hole in the roof, 5 years of pigeons and copper thieves and teenagers looking for a place to drink. Then the city decided it was a hazard and hired us to strip whatever copper and steel still had value before they tore down. My job was the freight elevator, the big caged beast in the back that used to haul bales from the rail spur to the spinning floor. 4,000-pound capacity, old Otis plates still riveted to the gate, letters worn soft. The calls started coming in the first week of March, motion sensors on the 3rd floor, then the 2nd, then the elevator itself tripping the overload alarm at 2:07 a.m. sharp every single night. City didn't care much, building was condemned anyway, but the insurance company wouldn't let the demo crew start till we proved the wiring wasn't gonna burn the block down. So they sent me, just me, one man, one flashlight, one thermos of coffee thick enough to patch a roof. I got there a little after midnight, parked my truck beside the chain link where the gate hung open like a broke jaw. Moon was thin, just a fingernail scratch over the ridge. The river was loud that night, running high and black, slapping against the old stone pilings. I walked the beam of my mag light across the loading yard, past rusted looms half sunk in mud, past the breaker boxes somebody had already torn the copper out of. The freight elevator sat in its shaft like a mouth waiting to be fed. Gate was up, car parked at dock level, dark inside. I stepped in, pulled the gate down, hit the button for the basement. Wanted to check the pit first, see if rats had built a condo on the scale or if water was shorting something out. The car dropped slow, cables singing that old tired song. Lights inside were long gone, so I worked by flashlight. The air got colder the deeper I went, river cold, the kind that climbs inside your coveralls and stays. When the car hit bottom, it settled with a sigh, like it was glad to be home. The scale read 4,200 pounds. I stood there staring at the digital display someone had wired in during the last renovation. Red numbers steady as a heartbeat. My own weight, 210 with boots and tool belt, should have had us at maybe 250 tops. I kicked the floor. Nothing. Shined the light around. Empty. Just dust and pigeon shit and the smell of wet cotton that never quite dried. I stepped off, watched the numbers drop to 0, stepped back on, 4,200 again. I laughed, short and ugly. Told myself it was a bad sensor, a ghost in the wiring. Happens in old places. I knelt to open the control box under the panel, figuring I'd bypass the damn thing and be done. That's when I felt it lean. Not a push, not a bump, just the softest pressure against my left shoulder, like somebody standing real close behind me, breathing down my neck without breathing at all. The car tilted a fraction, the way it does when a heavy pallet slides to one corner. I froze. The flashlight trembled in my hand. I swept it slow around the cage. Nothing to see. No shadow, no shape, no heat shimmer off the infrared I keep on my belt for checking motors. Just the weight, patient and steady, pressing the scale down like it had every right to be there. I stood up slow, hit the button for the lobby. The car didn't move at first. Then the motor overhead groaned. Cables took the strain, and we started up. Real slow. The numbers on the scale climbed, 4312, 4555, like whatever was riding with me was settling in, getting comfortable. My mouth went dry as bone meal. I started pushing every button I could reach. 1, 2, 3, dock, roof, emergency stop, alarm. Lights blinked, but nothing stopped us. We crept past the first floor, past the second, and at every floor the doors rolled open on blackness thick as felt. No lights in the halls anymore, just the dark waiting with its mouth open. And every time the doors opened, the weight increased. I felt it on my shoulders first, then my chest, then lower, like somebody stacking sandbags one by one. My knees started to buckle. The scale hit 5,100 by the third floor. The car groaned, metal crying the way it does right before something gives. Whatever was in there with me didn't make a sound, didn't shift, didn't breathe. It just added itself, pound by pound, the way grief does when you don't notice it's been growing till you can't stand up straight. By the time we reached the lobby, the car was sagging hard, floor tilted toward the back wall. The scale read 6837. I was on my hands and knees, flashlight rolling, trying to crawl toward the gate. The doors took forever to open, grinding like teeth. Cold poured in off the loading dock, river air thick with March mist. I dove through the gap, shoulder hitting concrete, rolling clear just as the door slammed shut behind me. The car dropped an inch, cable singing, then hung there swaying. I watched the digital numbers through the cage wire as they fell, 6,000, 5,000, 3,000, until they settled back at 0. Quiet like a held breath. I laid there on the dock a long time, tasting blood where I'd bit my tongue. When I finally stood up, my legs shook like I'd hauled a piano up 3 flights. The car was empty, no prints in the dust, no damp spots, no smell but the old river rot that was always there. I limped to my truck, sat behind the wheel with the engine running and the heat on high, watching the mill through the windshield. At 2:07 exactly, the motion alarm went off again. I didn't go back in. Next day, I told the foreman the scale was shot, recommended they disconnect the whole car before demo. He wrote it up, signed it, didn't ask questions. They cut the cables 2 weeks later, let the car fall to the pit with a sound like the world ending. I drove past the site last month. Building's gone, just a square of raw dirt and young sycamores already reaching up. But sometimes when the river's high and the fog sits thick in the mornings, I still feel it on my shoulders. That slow, patient pressing, waiting for enough lonely men to step inside and add their weight to whatever's been collecting down there all these years. I don't take freight elevators anymore. Don't matter if it's a hospital, a warehouse, a parking deck. I walk the stairs, even when my back screams. Because some things don't need to be seen to ride along. They just need you to carry them a little farther each time, till the cables can't hold what you've agreed to become. And down in the dark, something's still hungry for the next load. I never meant to stay in the city this long. Thought I'd put in a year or 2, save enough to buy a little place back up in Buchanan County, where the creek runs clear and the only thing watching you is the ridge. But money slips through your fingers like creek sand, and the years stack up quiet. By the time I was 42, I was still wearing the same uniform, still walking the same marble floors of the Caldwell and Associates building on East Carey Street, still the night man nobody really sees. 28 floors of lawyers who made more in a day than I'd see in a year, and every night after 6, the place belonged to me and the hum of the air handlers. The executive elevator was the one I watched closest. Brass rails, real wood paneling, carpet thick enough to muffle a heartbeat. It only served floors 21 through 28, needed a key card after hours. Most nights it sat quiet on 21, waiting for the next partner who forgot a file. I'd see it on the monitors in the security office. Little black and white box, doors closed, floor counter steady. Nothing to do but drink coffee gone cold and listen to the wind rattle the windows 30 stories up. It started on a Tuesday in late October, the kind of raw night that makes the James River smell like old pennies. I was half watching the feeds when the executive elevator dinged on its own. Doors opened on 24, empty, closed again. I figured somebody bumped the call button and walked off. Happens. Then it did it again on 26, and 23, and 25. 4 times in 10 minutes, always empty when the door slid apart. I got up, walked the halls, shined my light into every corner. Nothing. No footprints on the fresh waxed floors, no smell of perfume or cigarette smoke. Just the quiet hush of a building pretending it's asleep. Next night it happened again, only this time when the doors opened on 27, there was a child standing in the middle of the car. Little girl, maybe 8 or 9, wearing a red wool coat 2 sizes too big, hood down, dark hair hanging straight. She faced the back wall, hands at her sides. The cameras mounted high, so all I saw was the top of her head. Doors stayed open longer than normal, 15, 20 seconds, then closed. I was already running, boots pounding carpet, key ring rattling like bones. By the time I got there, the car was empty. No heat, no scuffs, no nothing. I rode it up and down twice, called it to every floor. Always empty. I told myself some kid snuck in with a parent, hid when she heard me coming. That's what I told myself. Wednesday and Thursday it was the same dance. She'd appear on the feed, always the same red coat, always facing away, always gone when I arrived. I started talking to her on the intercom while I ran. "Honey, you need to go home. It's late." No answer. Just that small, still shape under the grainy camera. By Thursday night, my skin wouldn't settle. I kept thinking about my little sister, Ruthie, how she used to wear a red coat just like that, the winter she got took by the fever. I hadn't thought of Ruthie in years. Didn't like how the memory rose up sour in my throat. Friday, I came in early, sat down with the logbook and a fresh pot of coffee. Told myself I'd figure it out. The elevator stayed quiet till 2:13 a.m. Then the alarm chimed soft, almost polite. I looked up. There she was again, same spot, same coat. Only this time she was turned around, facing the camera, waving, slow, like she was underwater. Her hand went up and down, palms small and white. I felt my stomach drop clean through the chair. I didn't run this time. I walked, real calm, counting my breaths the way Daddy taught me when we hunted ginseng and didn't want to spook whatever might be listening. I kept my eyes on the monitor the whole way. She kept waving. Then she stepped forward, 1 step, 2. The camera's near the ceiling, 12 feet high at least. She should have disappeared from the bottom of the frame. She didn't. She grew. The red coat filled more and more of the screen, hood falling back, dark hair hanging like wet rope. Her face got close enough I could see there was something wrong with the proportions. Eyes too far apart, mouth too wide, skin the color of creek clay after a flood. She smiled, and the smile kept coming, stretching until the screen couldn't hold it. The feed cut to snow, 30 seconds of static that sounded like wind through dead leaves. When the picture came back, the elevator was on my floor, lobby level, doors wide open. The car was empty, except for that little red coat laid out neat in the center of the floor, arms folded across the chest like somebody tucked her in. No child, no footprints leading the way, just the coat and the smell of wet wool and river water. I stood there a long time, long enough for the air to warm up again. Long enough to notice the brass rails had fingerprints on them, small ones, smeared like the hands had been wet. I picked the coat up with 2 fingers. It was heavy, soaked through, though the carpet underneath was dry. Inside the collar, somebody had stitched a name in red thread that was coming unraveled. R-U-T. I carried it down to the basement incinerator myself, fed it in, watched the flames take the wool and turn it black. Never wrote it in the log. Never told a soul till now. The elevator's been quiet since. No more random stops, no more little girls on the feed. But some nights when the building settles and the wind moves down the shaft just right, I still hear it. A soft ding on an empty floor. The whisper of doors opening and closing on nothing at all. And I know whatever wore that coat didn't leave with it. It just learned where I sit, where I watch, where I drink my coffee gone cold. I put in my notice the next week, told them family business back home. They gave me a card and a handshake I didn't feel. I still drive past the building sometimes on my way to nowhere in particular. The windows are dark after 6, but I know which light is the security office. And I know if I went in, sat down at that desk, turned the monitors on, she'd be there waiting, patient as stone, growing a little every night. Some things find you because they recognize something you lost. Some things wear what you buried just to remind you the ground don't keep everything. I take the stairs in every building now, even when my knees swell up and ache like rain's coming. Because the higher you go, the easier it is for what's looking to step in beside you when the doors close. And once it knows your name, it don't ever forget how to wave. I never liked living above the 5th floor. I always felt like I was borrowing space from the sky that didn't want me there. But the rent was cheap for a place in Richmond's old Monroe Ward, and the building, Park Plaza, 24 stories of 1970s concrete and brass, had a view of the James that made the drive back to Russell County feel farther away. I was 29, working second shift at the cigarette plant out on 895, and most nights I didn't drag in till after 1. The lobby would be empty except for the night doorman asleep behind his desk and the smell of old mop water. I'd nod at him whether he saw me or not and head for the elevators. I always took the same one, the middle car, because the other two made noises like they were thinking about quitting. That night the rain had never come, but the air felt like it was holding its breath, hot and thick, even at 2 in the morning. I hit the call button, leaned my head against the cool wall, and listened to the cables hum. The doors slid open with that tired sigh they all make, empty. I stepped in, pressed 19, and let my eyes half close while the car started its climb. 7 floors up, it slowed, dinged, and opened again. I figured somebody else burning the midnight oil. He walked in like he had been waiting a long time. Older man, maybe 70, wearing a gray suit gone shiny at the knees and elbows. The jacket hung loose on him like he'd lost weight since it was tailored. His tie was dark, soaked through, and water dripped steady from the cuffs of his pants, even though the streets outside were bone dry. His shoes left wet prints on the carpet. He smelled like river mud and the inside of a cedar chest that's been closed too long. He stepped to the back wall, stood dead center, and stared straight ahead at the doors like he was waiting for them to open onto something I couldn't see. Didn't press a button, didn't speak. I cleared my throat. "What floor you need, sir?" Nothing, not even a blink. His eyes were pale, almost colorless, the kind of eyes you see on catfish pulled up from the deep holes. I tried again, softer. "I can hit it for you." Still nothing. The doors closed and we started up again. I told myself he was drunk or senile, maybe both. Happens in the city more than folks admit. We passed 19, my floor. The number lit, then went dark as we kept climbing. I felt it in my chest first, that little twist when something's wrong but you can't name it yet. I watched the panel, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. The building only has 24 floors. Everybody knows that. The car didn't slow. The numbers kept rolling like the panel forgot how to count. 25, 26, 27. I looked at the man. He hadn't moved, but more water was coming off him now, black looking under the fluorescent lights, pooling around his shoes and spreading slow across the floor. It reached my boots and soaked in cold. I hit the 19 button again hard, then the open door button, then every button I could reach. The panel ignored me. The car kept rising, smooth and quiet, like it was on rails that hadn't been there yesterday. The higher we went, the colder it got. The kind of cold that climbs inside your coat and sits on your lungs. My breath started fogging. The man's suit kept dripping, drip, 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 steady as a clock. At what must have been 40, the lights flickered, dimmed, came back weaker. The numbers on the panel blurred, then stopped at a dash, just a little orange line pulsing like a heartbeat. The car shuddered once and quit. We hung there in the dark, between places that didn't exist. The only sound was the water hitting the floor and my own breathing loud in my ears. That's when he turned. Slow, like he had all the time that was ever made. His head rotated on his neck without the shoulders moving first. The smile came gentle, almost kind, the way my granddaddy smiled the day he told me the river remembers everybody it takes. The man's teeth were too white, too even. He looked me dead in the eyes and spoke in a voice soft as creek gravel. "You're getting off here, son." I lost what little sense God gave me. I lunged for the ceiling hatch, climbed on the handrail slick with that black water, shoved the panel up and out. The shaft above was black as a mine at midnight. I grabbed the cable anyway, grease burning my palms, and hauled myself up into the dark. I climbed blind, boots slipping, lungs burning, expecting any second to feel his cold hand close around my ankle. I climbed till my arms gave out, and I just hung there sobbing, cable cutting into my fingers. I don't know how long I dangled before the real lights came on below me, voices shouting my name. Maintenance found me 2 floors above the actual roof, clinging to a service ladder in a space that was only 4 feet tall. They had to pry my hands loose 1 finger at a time. I couldn't talk till they got me downstairs and wrapped me in a blanket that smelled like mothballs and cigarette smoke. They ran the tapes, every camera in the lobby, every floor, every angle. The elevator left the lobby empty, rode straight to 19, paused, went to the roof maintenance level where they found me. No man in a gray suit, no water on the floor, carpet dry as Sunday morning. They let me stay in the lobby till the sun came up. I sat there watching the elevators open and close on nothing, waiting to see if he'd step out again. He never did. I moved out before the week was done, left half my stuff in the apartment, and drove west till the skyline disappeared in the rearview. I still ride elevators when I have to, doctors' offices, courthouses, places like that. But every time the doors close, I look at the floor, waiting for the first dark drop to spread. And sometimes, when the car starts moving and I'm alone, I swear I can smell river water and cedar. And I keep my eyes on the numbers like they're the only thing holding the world together. Because some rides don't end when the doors open. Some passengers never get off. They just wait for the next person headed the same direction they are. And that direction ain't up or down anymore. It's somewhere the building remembers, but the blueprints forgot. And the higher you go, the closer you get to stepping out where there's no floor left at all. My daddy always said hospitals were just fancy graveyards where folks paid extra to die slow. I never believed him till the night I went to see him in St. Luke's up in Norton. Cancer had him down to skin on bone, eyes yellow as old newspaper. Doctors gave him days, maybe a week. I'd been driving back and forth from the holler every evening after work, sitting by his bed while the machines beeped like crickets that forgot how to stop. That night, the nurse told me he was sleeping heavy, but I could come back around 3 if I wanted 1 more hour before they started cutting the morphine. I told her I would. I always did. The visitor's lot was full, so I parked in the concrete garage across the skywalk, level 4, nose in beside a rusted-out Chevy somebody left to die. By the time I came back out, it was pushing 2:50 a.m. and the place was hollowed out. My footsteps echoed too loud, like the building was listening. I hit the button for the service elevator, the big, ugly one they use for laundry carts and bodies when nobody's supposed to see. Doors were already open, waiting. Inside smelled like bleach and wet pennies. I pressed B1 to get back to my truck, leaned against the rail, and let my eyes close for just a second. Long day. Long month, long year. The car dropped smooth at first, then gave a sick little hiccup, the way your stomach does when you miss a step on the stairs. Lights dimmed, the panel blinked, and instead of stopping at B1, it kept going. Ding, B2, ding, then nothing. No label, no light, just a soft mechanical sigh of cable still paying out rope. The floor counter went dark. I opened my eyes wide, heart kicking hard. I reached to hit the alarm, but before my finger touched it, a new button glowed down near the bottom, soft blood red, marked with a little etched -4. Never saw it before in my life. The elevator didn't shake or scream, it just settled, quiet as a coffin lid. Doors slid open on their own. Cold rolled in first, the kind of cold that comes up from deep ground. The corridor stretched out under buzzing fluorescent tubes, half of them dead or dying, flickering like a bad horror movie. Bare concrete walls painted that same sickly institutional green you see in every old hospital basement. But this wasn't right. The garage only has 2 levels below street. I'd parked there 100 times. Yet here was a hallway that smelled like old antiseptic and something coppery underneath, lined on both sides with hospital gurneys. 8, maybe 10 of them, parked neat as cars. Sheets gone, mattresses stained rust and yellow. Leather wrist restraints still buckled, hanging loose like they'd been slipped out a real gentle. I stood frozen in the doorway, scared to step out, more scared to stay in the car if the doors closed behind me. My phone showed no signal, just a little searching circle spinning forever. Somewhere farther down the hall came the faintest sound, soft, rhythmic, like somebody reading out loud under their breath. A woman's voice, slow and patient, the way nurses do when they charting at the station and think nobody's listening. I couldn't catch the words, just a rise and fall of it, steady as a heartbeat. I mashed the door close button so hard my thumb went white. Nothing happened for a long 3 count. The whispering kept on, closer now, or maybe the hallway was carrying it. I smelled latex and something sweet rotten, like flowers left too long in a sick room vase. The lights overhead stuttered, went dark for a second, then came back weaker. One of the gurneys rolled an inch on his own, wheels squeaking. I swear I saw the restraint straps twitch. That's when the hand came out of the dark. It slid from the shadows at the far end of the corridor, pale as milk, wrapped in a blue nitrile glove gone gray with age or worse. Fingers long, no nails painted, just a slow reach of somebody who had all the time in the world. It didn't grab or lunge, it just rested on the edge of the elevator door, gentle, like a nurse checking if you awake yet. The glove was torn at the wrist, and underneath the skin looked wrong, too smooth, no veins, no pores. I could see the overhead light shine straight through the edges of the fingers like they weren't all there. I slammed every button on the panel with both hands. The door close made a tired little chime and finally started sliding. That hand never moved faster, just curled slightly, knuckles bending in a way that made my stomach fold in on itself. The gap narrowed, 6 inches, 4, 2, and those fingers were still there, patient, waiting to see if I'd change my mind. At the last second, they slipped back into the dark like they were never real at all. Door sealed with a soft thump. The car shot upwards so fast my knees buckled. Lights came back full white. The panel blinked, settled on B1 like it was embarrassed. Doors opened onto the familiar oil-stained concrete where my truck sat under the flickering exit sign. I stumbled out, fell hard, scraped my palms raw. Security found me 10 minutes later curled up by the pay station, shaking so bad I couldn't get my keys in the slot. Old boy named Curtis shined his flashlight in my face and asked what happened. I told him the elevator took me somewhere it shouldn't. He laughed at first, then saw my eyes and stopped. He walked me back to the service elevator himself, said he'd ride it down with me to prove it was fine. Doors opened normal. Inside, the button panel went P1 all the way to B2 and nothing else. No red glow, no -4, no scratch marks where that gloved hand had been. Curtis got on his radio, talked to the garage supervisor. They pulled the blueprints right there on the computer in the booth. Built in 1974, renovated twice, 2 sub-levels only, always was. He looked sorry for me, the way folks do when they think grief's got you seeing things. I drove home with the windows down even though it was February, needed the air to feel real. Daddy passed 2 nights later. I never went back to that garage.
Sold the truck a month after the funeral because every time I got in it, I smelled latex and old flowers. Some nights when I can't sleep, I still hear that whispering, soft and patient, reading off a chart nobody ever finished writing. And sometimes when I'm in a different elevator, grocery store, courthouse, doesn't matter, I catch myself staring at the button panel, waiting for that little red -4 to light up again, gentle as a nurse taking your pulse. Because whatever was down there didn't follow me out. It just waited. And waiting's what it's best at.
I never was one for cities, not really. Grew up in a little holler outside of Clintwood where the only thing taller than the pines was the ridge behind the house. But rent's rent, and when the coal seams played out, I took what work I could find. Ended up on the graveyard cleaning crew at the first mechanical tower. 30 floors of smoked glass and brass that looked like it was trying too hard to forget it was built on top of an old riverbank graveyard. Folks downtown laughed when I told them that. Said the river changed course 100 years ago. I still kept my eyes down when I crossed the lobby at night. Most nights the job was quiet. Empty offices, the hum of the AC, the soft squeak of my cartwheels on marble. I liked the elevators best after 2 in the morning, when even the lawyers had gone home. Just me in the car sliding up and down like a slow heartbeat. There were 4 passenger elevators, but I always took the one on the far end, number 3. Something about the others felt watched. Elevator 3 had a big mirror on the back wall, floor to ceiling, framed in that dark wood they don't make anymore. I'd catch myself in it sometimes, looking older than my 34 years, beard coming in gray at the edges, eyes sunk from too many nights without real sleep. That night started like any other. Clock on the wall said 2:47 when I wheeled my cart in on 12 to mop the law offices. Place smelled like lemon polish and old money. I finished around 3:20, hit the call button and waited. Elevator 3 dinged, door slid open smooth as always. I pushed the cart in, pressed L for lobby, and leaned against the rail while the doors closed. That's when the lights flickered, just once, like somebody turned the world off and on again. The car gave a little shudder, then stopped dead. Not a jolt, not a drop, just quit between floors. The panel still showed 12, but I could feel it in my gut we weren't there anymore. Lights went out completely, black so thick it felt wet. Then the emergency bulb kicked on, that dull orange glow that makes everybody look half corpse. I stood there breathing slow, telling myself it was normal. Happens sometimes in old buildings. I reached for the alarm button, thumb hovering, when I noticed the mirror. The bulb was behind me, up near the ceiling, but the reflection wasn't catching the light right. My face floated there pale and tired, same as always, but the eyes, Lord, the eyes wouldn't blink when I did. I blinked hard, twice, 3 times. The reflection stared straight ahead, pupils wide and fixed like it was waiting on something. I laughed at myself, shaky little sound that echoed wrong in the metal box. Told myself it was the angle, the curve of the glass, some trick of the dim light. I turned away, focused on the panel, started pushing the open door button over and over like a fool. That's when I felt it smile. I didn't see it at first, just felt the skin on my neck crawl like somebody dragged a cold finger across it. I turned slow. The reflection was grinning, not wide, just a small pull at the corners of the mouth I swear I wasn't making. My own face felt normal, slack and scared, but the thing in the glass looked pleased, like it had been waiting years for me to notice. I backed up until the rail bit into my spine. The cart rattled when my hip hit it. My mouth went dry as creek stones in August. I tried talking to it, quiet-like, the way you talk to a stray dog that might bite. "What do you want?" No answer, just that little smile holding steady. I raised my hand, slow. The reflection raised its hand a heartbeat later, like it was learning. I lowered mine fast. It kept its hand up, palm open toward me, fingers curling once in a way that felt like beckoning. The air in the car got thick, heavy the way it does before a tornado drops out of a clear sky. My chest started aching something fierce. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, knees up, trying to make myself small. That's when the studying started. The reflection tilted its head, first one way, then the other, slow, like a person trying to figure how a watch works by staring at the face. It leaned forward, closer to the inside of the glass. I could see details I never noticed on my own face. The little scar through my left eyebrow from when I was 9. The way my nose bends just a hair from breaking it on a root when I was drunk at 17. It was cataloging me. Minutes dragged. I stopped looking at my watch because every time I did, the hand seemed to crawl backward. The only sound was my breathing and the soft creak of the cables overhead whenever the car shifted a fraction. I started counting heartbeats to keep from losing my mind. Got to 300 and something before the smile changed. Not bigger, just different, sadder almost, like it felt sorry for me. That was worse than the grin. I started crying then, quiet, the way men do when they think nobody's watching. Tears running hot down my cheeks while that thing in the mirror stayed dry-eyed and calm. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for my legs to go numb. Long enough that the emergency bulb started to fade, orange turning rust-colored like old blood. I kept waiting for the car to drop, for the cables to snap and send me screaming down the shaft. Part of it almost wanted it. Anything but sitting there being measured by my own face that wasn't my own. Then the lights flickered again, bright white this time, harsh as judgment. The car lurched and started moving, smooth, like nothing had happened. Numbers counted backward, 15, 14, 13, 12. The doors opened onto the service corridor behind the lobby where the maintenance guys keep their tools. 2 of them were already there with pry bars, faces pale and sweaty. They said the alarm finally went off, 43 minutes late. I stumbled out, shaking so hard one of them had to hold me up. I couldn't talk at first, just pointed back at the elevator. They followed my finger. The mirror looked normal now, just a big rectangle of glass reflecting the empty car, the scuffed floor, the flickering fluorescent lights in the hallway. One of the guys, older fella named Ray, noticed me staring. He cleared his throat and told me they'd replaced that mirror a couple months back after some kid on the cleaning crew took a mop handle to it one night. Said the kid quit the next day, wouldn't say why, just left his uniform in the locker and never came back. I walked back to the elevator one more time before I clocked out. Had to see. The car was still there, doors open, waiting. I stood on the threshold and looked at the new mirror. Nothing. No reflection at all. Just the inside of the elevator stretching back into darkness that shouldn't be there. I could see the emergency bulb glowing behind where my head would have been, but no me, no card, no nothing. I ain't been back in that building since. Told the supervisor I had family trouble out in Dickinson County and left before the sun came up. Some nights I still wake up reaching for the rail, feeling that smile on a face that's mine but ain't. And sometimes when I pass a mirror door in a gas station or a dark window on the street, I catch myself holding my breath, waiting to see if whatever was in there finished its studying or if it's still hungry to learn more. I take the stairs now, always, even when my knees scream climbing 8 flights to my new apartment. Because some things you don't risk twice. Some things look at you long enough, they start to remember the way home.